And now your host, Richard Thomas.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Miracle. If there's a common thread in the stories you're about to see, it's how our lives can intersect in unusual ways to bring about miracles. It might be a friend, a relative, even a stranger who holds the key to your fate. And in our first story, that key may have meant the difference between life and death. After moving to Texas to start a new life, Katsy Blackman's relationship with her son Jason hit an all-time low.
I really don't understand. What could you possibly have in common with these people? They're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything.
I was angry at my mother for moving me to Texas.
I thought you wanted to come here.
How am I going to agree to it? I was 15.
It was a complete culture shock for me. And all the people that I had grown up around were now 2,000 miles away, and I didn't know a soul here.
I tried to make up for that. I didn't know when we were coming here.
Yes, Mom.
He was very bitter about moving here.
I don't want to deal with you right now, all right?
Jason, we've got to work this out.
We had no support system down here, no family or anything. I felt that I had really become a bad decision maker. That everything that I tried was resulting in really becoming worse.
The constant battles left Katsy in a state of severe depression.
I felt like I was in this narrow tunnel and everybody was getting further and further and further away from me. And I couldn't reach them anymore. I was really lost and I didn't even know why.
I would see my mom cry on occasion. I hear it through the door, but I was never right there trying to help her through it. I didn't want to be bothered with her pain. I was too wrapped up in my own.
Worried about Jason.
Katsy turned to her friend, Bo Carver, for advice and support.
Let it out every so often. It was a wonderful friendship because he is caring, he's a great listener. Just kind of spill my guts about what's going wrong, you know, so just...
But what he heard made him very worried about Katsy's mental health.
When I first met Katsy, she was very positive and full of life. And over the course of time, that began to change.
Able to get everything done, always.
You could see the pressures were starting to build.
And not one thing is worth. Not one.
I began to notice those things gradually at first, but over a period of 6 months, it began to go downhill real fast.
Bo convinced Katsy to see a doctor who diagnosed her with clinical depression. She began taking prescribed medication to help with her condition, but the drugs could not protect her from her son's growing fury.
Jason is a stronger personality than me. He was more aggressive. I was pulling up the rear, trying to be a voice of reason.
Do you ever do what you say you're going to do? Do you ever go where you say you're going to go?
Do what I'm going to do.
It was a big one that night.
Jason comes first, doesn't he?
Over the same things.
Don't you think I know what's going on,
I don't
Jason?
think you know anything.
What do you think? Don't you think I look at you and I know?
My mother started crying, and I started walking away down the street.
Jason, please. Jason,
And even though she called after me, I just kept walking.
Jason!
That was the last I saw of her that night.
It was sad to me. I didn't understand why I just was so hopeless, because I had been like mesmerized by that idea that there's always something around the corner, and I didn't see anything, nothing. That's the mask of depression that people don't understand.
In the depth of her despair, Katsy came to a sudden realization.
It seemed like the clearest thought that I'd had in months. If I could just exit the picture, things would be better, and I truly believed that. I would go somewhere where no one would find me, and no one would know where I was. And I was very peaceful. I was calm and peaceful. I took off down the highway and didn't even know what direction I was really going. I was just out on the highway. So I drove I don't know how many miles to a motel that sat off the road a little bit. I need a room for just one night, please.
All right. Room 107, please.
Thanks a lot. You have a good night.
You too.
I made my way to the room, locked the door and put the chain on it. I didn't even reassess at that point. It seemed reasonable. And it seemed like it was as much the right thing as any other right thing had been in my life. And so I took all the pills and made sure that I took them slowly so that I wouldn't throw up or nothing would happen to the plan. You say this little prayer when you're a child, you know, now I lay me down to sleep. And that was the only thing I could think of to say. Just to keep the people around me safe, make life better for them. And that was it.
Katsy was alone and dying in a place where no one knew to look for her. But in an uncharacteristic move, her son Jason returns home that night.
Typically, when I would say I was going to a friend's house, I would come back the next evening or 2 days later. It was very odd that I had come home that evening.
Mom!
I walked through the hallway. She wasn't here. And there was no note, no message on the answering machine, nothing. And though it seemed odd, I figured she's an adult. She can do what she wants to do.
Across town, Katsy's friend Bo had already retired for the evening.
I'm a heavy sleeper, but this particular night, I awoke and I stared right at the clock, and it was a digital clock, and it said 3 o'clock in the morning. Immediately, the thought of Katsy came into my mind. I didn't have a real good feeling when I thought about her.
Yellow.
Is your mom there?
No, she's not here.
When Jason told me that she wasn't home,
Concerned about her.
I was just real concerned about where she was.
Maybe we can game plan to see where you think she might have gone.
The plan was for me to drive from my apartment to their house, and then for us to sit down and discuss ideas about maybe where she might be. At that point, I said, well, I'll jump in the shower. But as soon as I had that thought, an immediate impression came on me that there was no time for that. I just took off. I just began to say a prayer, guide me and protect her.
Katsy's home was more than an hour away, and by the time he arrived there, it would be too late for his prayer to be answered. But Bo persisted.
I didn't know if she was just running away.
Protect Katsy.
Maybe she just went to a friend's house.
Just guide me.
And I just kept repeating the prayer.
Protect Katsy.
That's the only thing I knew to do at that point in time.
And suddenly, something mysterious happened.
About 3/4 of the way to their home, I looked over out of the corner of my eye and saw this Ramada Inn sign. I just felt compelled to drive around the parking lot of that hotel. I remember thinking to myself that I will never tell anybody about this, because if I said to them that I'm looking for I don't even know what, I know people would think I was crazy. But as I made the third turn, I saw her car.
I can't believe her car's parked here.
There was just an immediate sense of urgency. I knew at that point that was a miracle, even finding that car. But little did I know that that was just the first part of it.
Listen, I'm sorry I'm coming in like this, but would you please check and see if you have a Katsy Blackman checked in your hotel, please?
I can't give out that information. hotel policy.
I wanted him to know that I was concerned for her health. She's been going through a lot, and she's been taking medication, and there might be a likely possibility that she might be taking her life. Would you at least call and see if she's okay? That's all I'm concerned about. Would you do that for me, please?
Call and let her know you're in the lobby.
Okay, that's fine.
There's no answer.
When he said there's no answer, I said we've got a big problem. Listen. If you've ever trusted anything in your life, you need to trust this situation. I began to really kind of plead with him at that point. Check and make sure she's okay. That's all I'm interested in. Can you do that for me?
Fair enough.
Please. And he said, okay, let's go check.
Patsy! Patsy, come to the door. Are you there? Open the door, please. Please open.
He grabbed his master key, opened up the door.
Patsy?
The door was chained.
Chain's locked. Let me get maintenance to cut this. Please hurry, hurry, hurry.
As the night manager went off to find the maintenance man, just this massive emotion hit me that there's no time.
Patsy!
When I went in, I saw her laying on the bed, and a lot of pill bottles were laying to the side.
Come on, wake up, wake up, wake up. Wake up.
While the night manager ran for help, Bo tried desperately to awaken Katsy, but there was no response.
Many, many emotions were passing through me at that time.
What'd you do?
I felt like that I might have been too late.
You just can't get her to do anything. I can't get her to respond. She took all those pills over there.
Bo was relieved when the paramedics finally arrived, but his fears were far from over.
Okay.
As soon as they came into the room, they escorted me out. The situation looked real grim.
Well, if she's breathing pretty shallow and her blood pressure's low, just go ahead and get her in the back of the ambulance. Okay.
I felt like, how could all these miraculous things take place? But then it was too late, and what was the purpose for that? I felt like that I'd let her down. And that was the last time I saw her until she was taken to the emergency room.
All Bo could do was wait and pray for one more miracle.
When I looked into the emergency room and her eyes looked at me, I knew that she was alive and that she would be okay.
I was able to come out of this zone of not seeing anything to really seeing things a lot more crystal clear.
And what was undeniably clear was that Katsy's life had been saved by a miracle.
I realized what an incredible miracle it was. So many things had to come together to make this happen. Jason had to come home at the right time. A very sound sleeper rising out of a bed. Bo had to wake up. It was almost like, this can't be real. If Bo Carver had not listened and followed his instincts and felt that it was all right to feel crazy or all right to feel all those things that he went through, there is no way that I would still be alive today. I have referred to him on some occasions as my guardian angel.
Today, she also refers to him as her husband, and together they're forging a new personal and professional life.
I say, come lay back in the arms of compassion.
And now I guess we're 7 or 8 years down the line, and I can still say it's still wonderful.
So the answer isn't written in a bottle.
He is my best friend, he's my partner, and I'm very thankful to have him. I'm very grateful to have him.
When the rivers rise.
Awesome.
They'll keep saying when
I
the
am
rivers rise, okay?
looking forward to spending the rest of my life with Katsy
Don't give up.
because I love her so much.
When the rivers rise.
Over the years as I've grown up, my mother and I have become the best of friends. She is a very vibrant soul, and what she gives to other people and to me is absolutely amazing. I'm eternally grateful that I got a second chance to have her in my life.
Katsy's brush with death has convinced her that miracles are available for everyone.
Be aware. Look, listen. It happened for me. There are miracles out there. They're out there.
Sometimes it's what we wish for others that becomes the legacy of our own lives. And our next story is about just such a wish. It combines the love of sports with the joy of friendship, and in the end is a lasting testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Crystal Fullen of Houston, Texas, was born to play softball, and her parents, Tom and Diane, watched in astonishment as their daughter took to the diamond like a little pro.
I think her enthusiasm for the game is what people saw more than an athletic ability at the age of 6.
You know, it's like a guy told me from Dallas, he said, "You finally got a ball player."
By the age of 12, Crystal was already planning to attend college on a softball scholarship, and she wasn't going to let anything stand in the way of her dream, not even a small lump in her foot.
Crystal noticed the lump on her foot before it got to be a pain in her foot. She had an injury playing softball, and we had to take her into an orthopedic and have her knee looked at.
Okay, Crystal, your knee looks fine. I think it's going to be okay. But I'm wondering, when did you break your foot?
I never broke my foot.
Oh, you didn't?
And she said, well, sure you have it, but it looked like it was healing well and everything looked fine.
But everything wasn't fine, and a year later, Crystal was having more and more difficulty walking.
So we just decided to go back and maybe we could just get it removed before it would cause her any more problems. So we were in the waiting room, and they said an hour, and 2 hours went by, and 2.5 hours, and we were, of course, getting a little anxious by this time.
Then the doctor comes out and he says, Mr. Fullen, I need to talk to you.
I'm afraid I've got some bad news for you. This thing in her foot is cancer.
Crystal was suffering from Ewing's sarcoma, a rare bone cancer that affects children and young adults.
I was just totally in shock. And I'm crying my eyes out, and I'm blaming God. Why would he do this to a kid that wouldn't hurt a fly, you know?
Crystal was immediately referred to Texas Children's Hospital and placed under the care of specialists, including Dr. Nancy Klein.
Ewing sarcoma is oftentimes very aggressive, and given the opportunity can spread throughout the body and through the bone marrow and sometimes into the lung.
While Crystal's cancer did not appear to have spread, her doctors recommended immediate and radical treatment.
We use a combination of chemotherapy and operation.
Will I be able to play softball anymore?
Probably not. After the chemotherapy, we would do an amputation below Crystal's left knee.
That was, I think, the most devastating news I'd ever had in my life. Of course, our only consideration is her recovery, and her one thought is, will I be able to play softball again? Within 10 days, Crystal was checked into the hospital for chemotherapy.
And that's where she was introduced to another patient, Valerie Wheeler.
I want you to meet Crystal. She's one of our new patients, and I know that you guys have a lot in common.
Amazingly, Valerie was also a softball player and was also suffering from an advanced case of Ewing's sarcoma.
At the time Valerie was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, the disease had already spread from the bone in her lower right leg into the bone marrow. We knew that her chances for survival were less than 50%.
But even a year of debilitating chemotherapy could not dampen Valerie's spirits. It was a trait her mother, Jan Wheeler, had seen before.
Valerie's nickname when she was very little was Sunshine. She found ways to be happy in every circumstance in her life, and she really looked for the glimpses of sunshine even in the darkest of days.
From her very first chemotherapy session, Valerie had displayed remarkable courage for a young girl.
And I remember very vividly that trip home from the hospital. She said, "Mom, I don't know why this has happened to me. But Mama, I know one thing. Because of me, people are going to be changed. Parents are going to begin to look at their own children differently. They're going to wake up and see the sunshine and just be glad for another day." When I heard those words, I had to steady myself because I knew that I had been forever changed and that I would never look at my children the same way.
So, like, there's no possible way that you can get it?
Are you serious?
A constant source of support, Valerie became a sort of mentor to Crystal.
I remember when Valerie told me about meeting Crystal at the hospital. She said, "I don't want her to be afraid. I want her to know that everything's going to be okay."
I know that it helped Crystal quite a lot to have somebody to talk to that was going through the same
I'll come
thing.
back and see you a little later.
There was a special place in Crystal's heart for Valerie.
If Valerie wasn't there, I wouldn't have known what to expect. It would have all just been, like, new to me. She helped me get through losing my hair, not being able to go to school, not being able to play softball. Valerie definitely gave me strength. I knew that if she could do it, you know, I could.
Hi, Crystal, I have a message for you.
Thank you.
And Valerie would give Crystal something more. She would plant the seed of a dream they'd share as a tribute to their faith and courage. Valerie had already endured months of chemotherapy, and her chances for survival were less than 50%. As she fought against her disease, she received a phone call from Terry Andropont of the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Make-A-Wish grants wishes to children with life-threatening illnesses. And one of the misconceptions about Make-A-Wish is people think sometimes that it's for dying children, and we're not. We're for fighting children.
Valerie chose season tickets to the Houston Rockets, and she was also given the chance to shoot baskets with Hakeem Olajuwon.
Going to the Rockets games was a way for Valerie to escape the treatment. I can remember times that we would take the chemotherapy pumps off, head over to the summit, watch a basketball game, then drive back to the hospital and hook the chemotherapy up again. They were that willing to work with us because they recognized that it's important to treat the whole child, to think about not only what's good for the body, but what's good for the soul.
The combination of wishes come true, aggressive medical treatment, and her own positive personality became the stuff of miracles.
For a year, she went through chemotherapy and radiation, and miraculously, at the end of the year, she was cancer-free.
And as Crystal's treatments progressed, she witnessed a miracle of her own.
What we want to do is we want to take this toe from there, clear down to this bone, and take that right out of your foot.
Okay.
And so you've got a foot left, but you probably figured out already that you only have 4 toes.
Right.
But so what? That's better than no foot.
Hi, this is Terry Andropont with the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh, hi. After the surgery, the Make-A-Wish people called and they said that I could make a wish. And I told Valerie that I have no idea what to wish for, and she was like, "Let me think about it."
Hi, Crystal, I have a message for you.
Thank you.
Cool.
She had written on a piece of paper, she has the perfect idea.
Valerie suggested that Crystal ask to be the Batgirl for the U.S. Olympic team.
And I was like, oh my goodness, you know, I have to do this. You know, I think that would be so cool, you know, to get to go to the Olympics and hang out with them.
Yes, this is Mr. Porter with the International
While Terry arranged for Crystal's wish to come true, Valerie learned that her cancer had returned.
The medicines that Valerie had used in her initial year of chemotherapy had obviously kept the cancer away, but had not cured her cancer. And we began to think about things not in terms of months and years, but in terms of how to make every day a great day.
Hi. Hi. How are you feeling? Okay, I guess. I brought your presents. The last time I saw Valerie, she was not doing good at all. Like, they didn't know how long she had. That was like really hard to see, you know, like her going through all that and then like it like coming back.
Crystal was at softball practice in June of 1999 when she received news that Valerie had passed away.
Valerie spent the last 7 months of her life at home surrounded by her family and friends, and ultimately she died very peacefully in our bedroom.
Valerie's life had ended, but the hope she'd inspired lived on, and within weeks of her death, the dream that she and Crystal shared came true.
You're going to Australia.
Aw.
I swear you're going to Australia, man.
When my dad told me, I was so excited, and I just remembered how the whole thing got started and how she would be so happy, you know, that it was gonna come true.
I heard about it out at the softball field. I had gone out that day to see some of Valerie's friends play, and big burly Tom Fullen comes up and he says, "You won't believe it, Jan. Crystal's wish has come true." He says, "No, Valerie's wish has come true."
And that following summer at the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney, Australia, Crystal took her place as Batgirl for the U.S. women's softball team. One of the highlights for her was meeting team captain Dot Richardson.
Well, seeing Crystal for the first time in the Olympics, you could tell that she was living her dream. And for us to look at her, I just felt so much life and appreciation for every moment that she had. When she mentioned Valerie, she lit up quite a bit because I think she knew she was where she was because of that inspiration.
I was sitting there in the dugout and I was like, man, she would have been like so happy for me to be there. Everything was just perfect. I always knew like she was always there, you know, like in the dugout, like watching over.
Today, the cancer that threatened Crystal's life has been in remission for 3 years, and the odds of it returning are very small. She is a walking, sliding miracle.
I really think that the whole thing has been a miracle. One, she had the cancer on her foot for 2 years. She had a successful operation and went through all the chemo. Had Valerie Wheeler there to tell her all the bad and the good things that are fixing to happen to her. To be able to go to Australia for the USA softball team, to be the bad girl, is a miracle to me itself.
And it would not have happened without the love and support of Valerie Wheeler.
Valerie's legacy is joy. Her legacy is hope, not only for the life that she led here, but the life forever. I think she's on a great adventure. And I think, in fact, I know that wherever she is, she's spreading joy and she's spreading hope.
Valerie Wheeler was an inspiration to everyone who met her, but perhaps most of all to her mother Jan and her good friend, Crystal Fullen. They join us now from Houston, Texas. Hello.
Hi, Richard. Hello from Texas.
Hi, Richard.
It's nice to meet you both. And I have to say, after watching your story, I can't help but feel that I'm meeting Valerie as well. Crystal, are you still involved in softball?
Yes, I'm back playing softball right now. I'm playing for my high school team. And I am also playing for a team called Texas Storm, which is a team that Valerie used to play for.
I can see how much that means to you both. And I also know you're working hard to keep Valerie's memory alive.
That's right, Richard. Embodying Valerie's indelible spirit, we've created a foundation entitled Project Joy and Hope. And what we hope to do is to provide resource development, program development, education, and community awareness that the needs of children at end of life are very special and different.
And how can our audience get involved?
We have a website called www.joyandhope.org, and you can log on and read about our organization and what we're doing to help these special children.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us and for sharing your truly inspirational story.
Thank you.
Goodbye then.
Bye.
Bye.
Our next story provides a slightly different take on the theme of lives intersecting to perform miracles. In it, a group of people, with the assistance of two very special birds, turns a disaster into a triumph. It's a video miracle that gives you a close-up look at a side of nature you've probably never seen before. The tall trees of Lake Seminole, Florida, have been home to the American bald eagle for as long as local residents can remember.
I couldn't fail to become immediately attracted to these birds because they're just magnificent.
Jay became particularly interested in one bird and eventually tracked it to its nest.
And there she was, sitting on eggs. I mean, everything was set. I had gone late afternoon, and she was fine. She was all hunkered down in her nest, one beady eye looking at me. And I came back the next day, and there was no nest tree.
Instead, Jay found that vandals had cut down the tree, apparently in an effort to destroy the nest.
I was very angry. It's like having someone attack a friend, and you get really mad about it. I ran to the nearest phone and called Tony.
Well, we went to the site where the nest had been standing, and sure enough, underneath all the debris and rubble and tree limbs, there was an egg that we salvaged, and we didn't really give it much of a chance for success because it fell about 75 feet from its nest and laid on the ground for an entire cold night.
Tony rushed the egg to the Florida Audubon Society Center for Birds of Prey.
Using a stethoscope, we could hear its little heartbeat. So that was very exciting to know that despite all it had been through, it was still alive.
But they were still concerned. Even though the chick had somehow miraculously survived, it was just days away from hatching and might have been severely weakened and harmed by the cold. That's when they turned to two permanently injured eagles at the center who had been trying unsuccessfully for several years to mate.
Prairie is the female eagle, TJ is the male eagle. They're both in their mid-teens, and each bird has been in captivity since they were very young because of their injuries. The male lost a wing by colliding with a power line, and the female lost her wing as a result of infection from an arrow injury. And we felt that they certainly deserve the opportunity to be an eaglet parent. So we installed a video camera, and we had hooked up a monitor in the center building so we could watch the activity of the nest without having to be near the birds themselves. We didn't want to disturb the adults. We didn't want to do anything to endanger the chick's life. They had an egg that they were incubating of their own that was infertile. We had marked the eggs to tell them apart. This egg became a symbol of hope for everyone involved in the story. So there was many eyes upon this pair of eagles. After 24 hours, we saw a portion of the eggshell was broken, and we could see a glimpse of a wing, and we could hear the peeping cries stronger and stronger. And the adults would jump up and stare at it. and try and figure out what was going on because they'd never experienced this before.
Hours later, the egg hatched.
We had to see if Prairie and TJ were going to accept it as a chick. Would they know instinctively how to care for it and care for it properly? But we had to trust the adult eagles to do what would come naturally. And even though they made a few mistakes at first, they stepped on the chick and they tried to feed it pieces of food that weren't appropriate. They very quickly settled into the natural behavior of raising the nestling. Nothing grows as quickly as a young eaglet. In 5.5 weeks, the chick gained 6 pounds.
It was time to get her into a wild nest because it's important that the eaglet has an opportunity to imprint on its surroundings and to become part of the wild population.
But the surrogate parents would not give up their adopted child easily.
We opened the door and both adults charged us. It was kind of bittersweet for Prairie and TJ, but parents always want something better for their young. They were wonderful parents. They did a marvelous job, and that was very fulfilling to see.
We studied every one of the nests in Pinellas County rather intensively in order to find the right fit. And we found one that was ideal. It had 2 eaglets in it already. That nest was about 90 feet high. In order to put the eaglet in a wild nest, I had to climb the tree.
I had fixed up a luggage bag that was padded. We placed the eaglet in the luggage bag, covered it up, and then hoisted it up 90 feet above the ground to her 3rd set of parents, to the new wild foster parents.
I just put her in there, in between the 2 other chicks, and she fit right in.
It's a perfect age match.
Woo. Score 1. We were all down there waiting. The call comes, she's perfect, she fits perfectly. And so that was it.
Oh, great job.
Thank you, great job, Tony.
I don't get emotional about this stuff, but when I took that eaglet out of the satchel and realized that that was the same egg that we picked up about 5 weeks earlier, and we were now putting it back into a wild nest, it hit me as being quite a remarkable occurrence.
And as everyone knows, a remarkable occurrence is just another way of saying it's a miracle. Well, that's our show for now. Thank you for joining us, and a special thanks to all the people who shared their remarkable stories on It's a Miracle. It's our hope that whenever you need one, you'll find a miracle in your life too. Until next time, I'm Richard Thomas. Goodbye.